Good afternoon. So you join us again on another really cold, very misty Saturday afternoon in the rather foggy weather. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. We've got the P38 today, the Range Rover. We're going to be discussing the EAS system. I've been on the Facebook groups and I see various people are having fun with their EAS and various technical difficulties with it. So I thought we'll do a little video and I'll show you how I've done mine. So what we've got on this is we've done some gauges and stuff. And I thought I'll show you how I fitted it, talk a bit about what I've done, maybe talk a little bit about sort of diagnosing and basics of the EAS system, just to try and help you all out a little bit. So if you want to join us, we'll go to the EAS. Right, so what we're looking at here is on the EAS system. So you've got your main compressor, that's obviously what pumps it up, a bit like a tyre pump for your tyres. Got your valve block. Then down here, what I've added onto mine, take my big dirty gloves off, what I've added onto mine is this little guy here, which is a little pressure gauge. I'm going to stick some light on there, that should help out a little bit, there we go. So normally what you've got is you've got this pipe here, that pipe, that runs to the tank, the reservoir tank, which on these is on the, if you're in the UK, the driver's side, or on the right hand side of the vehicle. What I've added is this, so basically I can see how much pressure is in my tank, which makes it so much easier for diagnosing any faults, any technical problems I have with the vehicle. So if there's any, if I can see if the compressor's, how long it takes to charge, so if the compressor's doing enough, I can check the next day, see if I've got any leaks. So it's absolutely really handy to have. Not just that, if I wanted to, I could take the compressor off, not the compressor, sorry, the gauge off, and I could fit like a tyre valve to it. So if I wanted to, I could then manually charge the system up using a tyre pump, which is also really good as an emergency backup situation. What I'll do is I'll just show you how sort of go through how I've done it, the parts, and I'll send Sam over a list of where I got them from eBay, or the parts I bought, and I will put them down below in the description, so you can also get the parts as well if needs be, and I'll go through a few other little things as well while we're at it. But basically what you've got is this pipe here sits in, if you come around here, sits into this little hole here, sits in that little hole there. So it's the closest, it's this one just here, which is the closest pipe to the front of the vehicle, so directly behind the airbox. Closest pipe, this one, goes to the main reservoir. And to remove this pipe, so you've got this little metal collar, so you've got a little metal ring which you can see goes around the pipe. What you want is either a pair of long nose pliers or even a screwdriver will work. Push against that little collar, just push it in, pull the pipe. You might take a little bit of force, but that's all you need. Then the pipe should slot right out. Then you get yourself another bit of 6mm. So all these pipes, these are all 6mm pipes. So what you need is another bit of 6mm, a T-piece. Again, all this will be in the description below. A T-piece, a 6mm adapter for the gauge, then the gauge itself. Then what you want to do is you cut two pieces of your 6mm to however long you want it. So I've got a sort of couple of inches there. My plan is with this one to make it a little bit longer. This is purely for testing for now because I haven't long fitted it. And then I'm going to screw this onto there. So once you've taken your pipe out, get your T-piece, push it onto the pipe. Make sure you push it really firmly on. You'll feel it sort of slot in. Same with all the other pieces. When you push them in, you really want to give them a good push because you've got two O-rings in there, so you really want to give it a good push to make sure it slots in nicely. A bit of sort of like a silicone lube will work as well. The other thing is as well, if you're cutting the pipes, make sure you give them a really clean cut. Cut them at 90 degrees and give them a deep clean cut, because if there's any blemishes or any nasty cuts or any sort of issues with it, it will leak. You will have leaks. What we've done with this one as well, something we've added to it as well, is we've added this. It's just a 3D printed little mould, so that's the gauge itself. I've added a little 3D printed mould which my dad's printed off for me on a 3D printer, just to fit around it, just so I can actually screw it on so it's not flapping around all over the place. I can go back on there. But yeah, it's pretty much as simple as that. It looks more daunting than it is, but it's literally as simple as that pipe out. But whatever you do as well, people have said, oh, should I cut this and then put the T-piece in this? No, don't cut that pipe. Just pull that pipe out. So again, push the collar in, pull that pipe out. Because if you cut this pipe and you mess up the cut, That entire pipe runs down the chassis, round the back, across the frame, and into the tank. That entire line of pipe will need replacing if you mess up this pipe. So don't cut this up. If you mess these ones up, that's fine, because you've only got to replace that little bit of pipe. Cut this one and mess this one up, you've got to replace the entire pipe, which you don't want to be doing. So yeah, make sure you only cut these and it's nice and clean. But apart from that, it's actually a really simple system to do. And then if you actually look on these as well, you got these collars here. They're exactly the same collar that's in there. Pair of pliers or something, just put around it. Don't grip the pipe, but just enough to get around it and pull up on the collar and pull the pipe out. That's how you take these off. Same with these. That little collar, that little ring there, that pushes in and the pipe will come sliding straight back out. So, I just want to talk about a couple of other things as well, because a few people have asked about sort of diagnosing the EAS and sort of various things you can check for. So, two good tips to look for leaks. One is if you get yourself a little spray bottle, fill it sort of 50-50 with dish soap and water, and spray. So if you spray around everything, it's where all the hose pipes, all the connectors are along here. So you got connectors here, so that's your air dryer. Your top of the airbags, where the pipe's going to the airbags, and where the pipe goes into the reservoir tank. If you spray all around there and give it a few seconds, if you see any bubbles or if it starts bubbling, you know you've got a leak. It's a good test to see if there's any leaks. It's what they use on tyres as well for finding punctures. Another little trick as well, so if you've got a little bit of pipe, so this is what, about ½ inch worth of pipe, is if you pull it over something and put it to your ear, almost works like a stethoscope. So you can listen for leaks. So if you move that around all the connectors, you will actually hear the air, because like this, it's very difficult over any background noise or anything that's happening on, you know, including Ben taking wheels off the car. Sorry about that. It's very difficult to hear any air, but this emphasises the sound. So by doing something like this and moving around all the connectors, you can actually hear the air leaks. So that's a really good tip for just trying to discover air leaks. Those are probably your two best ones, is the pipe and your dish soap. And when it comes to testing the compressor as well, this little filter, oh yeah, little air filter on the front, this comes off. So if you unscrew that, so when the compressor's running, what you can do, so that's the air intake, so when the compressor's running, that's where the air goes in. If you put your finger over that, you should be able to feel it sucking. It's something like it's trying to suck your finger in. That's a good indication that it's working okay. You shouldn't be able to really feel any air coming. If you've got air being pushed back out of that as well, that would indicate that you've got a problem with the one-way little valves that are inbuilt into the actual compressor itself. Not the non-return valves in this, but the actual valve inside the compressor. There's two little metal tabs, and when the compressor's running, those tabs stop the air from coming back out or going in the wrong direction. Another tip as well, if you come around here, is if you look down the bottom of the compressor, you should be able to see where the blue pipe is. You got enough light there? A bit more. I'll provide us with some light. But where that pipe is, if you take that pipe off and put your finger against the opening, the hole, you shouldn't be able to hold your finger against it. There should be, the pressure will build up behind your finger, and you shouldn't be able to hold your finger against it. If you can hold your finger there, then the compressor is not putting enough out. The compressor's not putting enough air out, which means well, it's just going to keep constantly running. You can get repair kits for the compressor, so for the pistons and for the seals, so you can get a thing that does the outer collar for the piston what it runs in, and then you've got the actual seals for the piston itself. So you can get a refurb kit. The compressor, so not to actually lift the car up, but just to pump the system, so to recharge the main reservoir tank, which is up to 10 bar, 150 psi. It should take, for a good compressor, a good system, no leaks, around 7 minutes to fully charge the system up. Once it gets to 10 bar, the compressor itself will shut off, and then when it drops down to, I think it's about 120, 125 psi, the compressor will cut back in again. So it's got a pressure sensor which will cut the compressor on and off. So if your compressor is constantly running, you've either got a knackered compressor which isn't pushing out enough, so start with your compressor, see if that's putting out enough. Then check for any leaks, because if you've got leaks, the compressor's going to be overworking, trying to compensate for the leaks. Obviously, if you haven't got any minute leaks, you want to get them sorted out, because what you don't want is your compressor wearing out, because it will overwork. If you've constantly got little leaks and there's air running out, this will overwork to compensate it, and it will overheat and it will knacker out the internals, and you'll be constantly fixing this or getting to a point where you have to replace it. And these aren't cheap. You know, an aftermarket one's 200 quid, and then an actual one you're looking at about 500 quid manufacturer, so they're not cheap, so you want to look after that. So that's your compressor. Then from your compressor, everything along the top here, this is your valve block system. So these are all your valve system. So this is what operates the, basically, it operates sending where it distributes the air to. So starting from the back again, let me provide you some light. So starting from the back again. So you've got your main diaphragm unit at the back. So if you look down here, you've got that sticking out there, that sort of almost sort of fluffy looking thing. That's what's called the exhaust silencer. So if when the compressor is running, you can feel that little silencer just unscrews. So if you take that off and put your finger against the hole, if when the compressor's running, you can feel air permanently coming out of that hole. That means your diaphragm unit, so it's in here, so the whole valve block would need to come out, but it basically means you need a new diaphragm. The diaphragm should only let air out when the compressor's not running. So when this runs, this solenoid will activate. That will allow the pressure to equalise on both sides of the diaphragm so it doesn't lift. If you've got air coming out, that means there's a leak on your diaphragm and the air is passing through. So that'll be your next step to check, because that's also quite a common fault, is the diaphragm's failing. So your best way to test that is to put your finger against that compressor running to feel if there's air coming out of there. If there's air coming out of there, that'll be your next step. Same with the pipe above it, the smaller 4mm pipe. You can check that as well, which is this little pipe here, little 4mm pipe here, which just slots in that hole there. Again, if you've got air coming out of that, that would also indicate you've got an issue with your valve system and solenoid. So that's another place to check. And then moving on from there, you've got your thicker pipes, which is this one here and the one at the back. So the air goes through the solenoid or through the valve block, comes out, runs up this pipe, runs up to the front here, which is the air dryer, so it removes the moisture from the air. Then it runs back in, then it runs back into the valve block again, and then what will happen is it will run through the valve block, run through the non-return valves, which are in the front half here. You've got 3 non-return valves, and then run through the non-return valve back out of this pipe here and into your tank. So that's basically how it fills the tank up. So what will happen is the compressor will run, that solenoid will activate to stop the diaphragm from lifting to equalise the pressure. You'll run through the air dryer, back out, then off into the tank. To lift the vehicle, for the EAS to actually lift the vehicle, the compressor doesn't do it on its own because it hasn't got enough. It doesn't provide enough air to lift the vehicle. It has to charge the system up to about between 8, 9, 10 bar to then get enough for the whole vehicle to lift. So if you've got no air in the system, you'll notice the vehicle won't lift immediately for a good 5-10 minutes until the vehicle has recharged its system. So what will happen is once it's charged up, the vehicle will lift. You'll use the air that's stored in the tank. So again, still using the reservoir pipe, which is still feeding in. So instead what will happen now is the compressor will shut off. And you've got 4 valves here, 2 valves on the bottom. It look exactly like this, but they're at the bottom. These two, they're your airbags. So these 2 and these 2 go to the airbags. Each one is individual for the airbag. Each airbag has its own solenoid and valve. Then these ones are your inlet and exhaust valve. So what will happen? So for example, say this one wants to raise up, so I want to raise this bag up. The inlet valve will open. Air will pass through the non-return valve, through the inlet, into that bag. And then say, for example, if he wants to lower the vehicle, this will shut off. The air will run, this one will activate, the exhaust one will activate. This will then allow the air through from out of the bag, through the exhaust, back through the non-returns again, and this time it will vent through the diaphragm. So even though it's quite a daunting system, it's actually quite an easy system to work around. Another thing to look for as well is if you've got a drooping car. So if the car is drooping to one side or a bit lopsided, and you want to try and work out which corner might be having a problem. So say you've got a leaky valve block, or you've got a leak on one of your bags, but you're not sure which bag it is. What you want to do, raise the car all the way up, go to maximum height, and then you come around with me. So, excuse the mess of the car at the moment, but you want to go maximum height on the car, raise the passenger seat all the way up, then in there, if I can borrow that a sec, thank you. So in there is, just there, I'll try and point to it with my phone, look, that just there, that big black thing just there, where I'm pointing to, that tallish looking black thing, that's the relay, that's the EAS system relay. So, lift the car to maximum height, pull that out, so raise the car, pull that relay out, and then just leave the vehicle. Leave it for a few hours, then come back. So if you get back to the vehicle and say, that corner's really low, but all the other corners are still up, you know that corner's the one that's leaking. Or say you come back and this one's drooping, you know that this one is the issue. If all three corners are still up and that one's low, you know that bag has got a leak. So somewhere between that bag and the valve block, you've got an issue, or even the bag itself may have split. If all four of the bags are still up, then you know your problem's going to be to do with the air leaking back out the reservoir. So then you'll have to then look at where the air's leaking, when it's coming back through the non-return valves, or if you've got a leaking pipe on the reservoir. That'll be your next test. If the whole car has dropped, then you've probably got an issue with the actual valve block itself. So the whole car's not sitting right and the whole car is dropping, you've got an issue with your valve block, because that means it's passing back through the non-return valves and back through either the inlet or the exhaust valve and getting back out. So then you've got quite a serious issue then. But again, you can get a full kit. You can get a kit for the valve block, you can get a kit to refurb the diaphragm, you can get a kit to refurb the compressor, or you can get a kit that does the whole lot for about 50 quid. And have the whole lot out. It looks daunting. It looks quite a scary task, but it's actually easy enough to do once you've pulled it all out. But for the EAS system, that's pretty much about it. So I'm hoping those of you who've got questions on the EAS, I'm hoping this will help you out. If you've got any questions, do please comment. Do please ask. Do post on the Facebook group. I will be putting this video on the Facebook groups, so please do ask. If there's anything I've missed, or there's anything you want clarification on, please do mention it as well, and we'll do more videos, and I'll try and do some more in-depth videos on specific things that people are struggling with. So if there's any specific leaks or any specific problems you're having, let me know, and I'll try and do some sort of more specific videos, or point you in the direction of where you can find some more information. So I'm hopeful that helps, and we will see you again soon.